live streaming. One. Okay, so we're live streaming and the audio is good?
The audio's up right in that center panel.
Okay, and then is the video correct as it is? Or is that like your screen sharing? I don't know.
No, that's just how it looks on Zoom.
Okay.
And then I'm not on YouTube yet.
I'm not either.
Last month when I tried to see it on YouTube, all I got was audio.
Yep, that's all we had.
Okay.
Last month, yep.
Our technology is evolving, right?
So we have different things we've been running across each time. There's only audio. Anyone else seeing it yet?
No.
Supposedly, if that upper little screen has visual, they will see you.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
I
told.
got it.
Okay.
There's YouTube.
Okay, YouTube is
All right.
up, and we have volume?
Yep.
Okay, we can start the meeting then, 4:32. And let's go around and say our names. Sharon Beaver, Chair.
Thomas Dewhurst.
Jim Maluish.
Rachel Yondel.
Bobby Glasser, member.
Rob Lekas, member.
Joe Bauer.
Steve Romanelli, member. David Benak.
Okay, and if we could get approval for the agenda, except for we would like to move Justin up to right after this because he has to leave in about 13 minutes.
We move we approve the agenda, today's agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Tom, for the first, and then Joe for the second on that. And we can have Justin come up and speak now.
Yeah, a little youth sports equipment crisis. I got 200 kids waiting to get all the stuff in my truck. Yeah, so I don't know if everyone was here last time when I was here. Justin Gish, Sustainability Planner for the City of Kalamazoo.
Oh,
My job to kind of get that community sustainability plan going and other duties as assigned. Some of those other duties came up kind of through this board and through other folks. So I'm looking at lighting ordinances right now. That was a popular topic a while ago. I talked about an hour and a half with the guy this morning. He said he was going to show up, Tom. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Tom. So yeah, we talked about that. Other trainings, but I guess the big thing is the greenhouse gas emissions report. So I'm doing two right now. I'm about 95% done with collecting the data. I got fine tooth, go through the data, make sure I'm converting all my metric tons to short tons and vice versa. So we're looking to, any luck, kind of release that by the end of the year. The plan is, it kind of goes through the proper channels. It'll come to you all for review. We can all edit it together and then get it out the door. But we'll have those two numbers. For the community-wide, which is everything that occurs within the city boundaries, we're going to update that one maybe every 2 to 3 years. That's kind of when that data gets updated. For the citywide greenhouse gas emissions data, that is going to be updated annually. So we'll be able to track every year kind of where the city's at. And then every, 2 to 3, maybe 4 years for where the community's at. That's it. Can't really share any numbers now. Got to go through them and get them approved by everyone and checked off. But you all will get a copy and we'll be able to discuss that together before it's released to the general public.
So community greenhouse gases every 2 years
2 to 3. Yeah, a lot of the data updates 2 to 3 years.
And then city every year?
Annually, yeah.
Okay.
That's just, it's so much easier because we have all that data on hand.
Yeah.
But yes, for that, I'm tracking energy use within all the city buildings, gas and diesel use, employee commute data, and then wastewater, public services type stuff. So that's what ICLEI says. Yep.
How do you see that data being used once you accumulate it?
Well, it gives us the baseline, so lets us know where we're
So
at.
this is a new,
Totally new. Never
Okay.
been done before.
all right,
Yeah.
so baseline and see
Baseline.
what the impact will be going forward.
Yep, yes,
Okay,
we'll know
thank
where
you.
we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as the community one, are you categorizing it according to the source?
Yep, yeah, so, yes, so city, kind of those categories, community-wide, it's transportation, commercial buildings, residential buildings, industrial processes. That's it for that one. Those are the big ones.
Okay.
Yeah, some stuff doesn't track. I mean, these numbers, I know the numbers. I know we brought up like, lawnmowers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
These numbers is asterisk. It doesn't move the needle at all. I mean, so there's plenty of other small sources,
Mhm.
but those categories there just dwarf everything. Sometimes, yeah.
So the main ones for community are buildings?
Yeah, so buildings broadly, when and within buildings, it's residential and commercial buildings. And then it's transportation, which includes cars, trains, airplanes. Then what else to say? Industrial, which is EPA flight data, and that's mostly graphic packaging. It might be Western, but I have to sort out how that data is counted. So if Western's reporting their emissions, but then their emissions are already being reported as commercial through the Google Insight that I'm using.
You don't want to double it or whatever?
Yeah, in the weeds there, but yeah, so industrial, and then, transportation. Yeah, transportation, it's spoiler, it's gonna be the built infrastructure in buildings, you'll see. But, yeah, so, but it's fun. We get a report, it'll be, like a 20-page, kind of like formal type document, and then we'll do smaller information sessions. Release it, figure out where to go from there.
Okay. Do you think you would want to come back in around, November?
Yeah, I saw November on there.
Yeah.
I think November will be good. I don't know, depending where we're at, you'll either have a document then or you won't.
Okay.
But we'll be that much closer to, I'm learning how to talk. It's like
You're doing good so
city.
far.
But yeah, so you might be able to see the numbers then, you might not, but we'll be that much closer to actually having it done. So, but the goal is the end of the year.
Okay.
And then try to have it released every December to
Great, thank you.
ring in the holidays.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, any other questions? And then, feel free, Commissioner has been sending me folks, that email you sometimes, so I'm happy to just talk to folks. I've been meeting folks out with.
I don't know if you're on our email. Is he on there? So he gets all of those? Because that would be possibly beneficial. Because I know there was a few people, I don't remember offhand now. It was like Jamie was one that was getting those, I thought, as well.
She was not on the list for
Okay.
regular things, but if that's something you want me to
Well, we
do,
can
I
talk
can
about
make sure I forward it to him.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I can do that too. I thought that our email address went to a few city people outside of us, which,
Not usually.
okay.
Cool.
When did you join the city?
May 1st.
Okay, great.
Yeah, a couple, 4 months, a little over, but, yeah, and then,
Cool.
Chris,
And then-
he'll be more interesting than that, but.
We'll get back to the regular schedule and then get to you in a little bit here.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll go right back to approval of meeting minutes. Did anyone have any corrections? Gail sent her a couple of corrections via email. Anything else?
I sent you a couple of corrections, those places were named wrong.
Okay. Was that like for, okay, you sent that to me?
I just sent it to you, just
Okay.
like a few minutes ago.
All right, I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know what I'm not getting then. Okay, that works. And if you have any other corrections, we can say as amended, as usual, in the next couple of days, if you want to send those along. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
All right, so David for the first and, Melanie Wesh, for the second. Supposed to say those names for the minutes. So help me remember that if anyone, catches that. And any announcements, individual or community announcements, environmental related? I saw there's a plant-based party happening at the farmer's market. I don't have the details right now, though, so I'm sure it's not between now and the next meeting, but a cool thing out there that I find environmentally related. Okay, so hearing nothing else, we can move on to news or educational items. Anything else that in the news locally or elsewhere?
Want to check the policy?
Oh, sorry, yeah, we can do that. I need to write that in here again. I made the font a lot smaller so I could try to still fit this into one page. I don't know if anyone noticed that, but.
I can still read it, so we're good.
Good. All right, no callers right now, so we'll check if anyone's listening. If you have a comment later, we will also check the phone lines towards the end, which it is on the agenda there. Okay, was there any news or educational items anyone wanted to pass along? Okay, we'll move along then. And, oh, yeah, there's the phone check, but we just did that. So procedural, we still don't have a vice chair. Was anyone interested in that potentially?
If we need somebody, we've been kicking this around for about 4 months.
A few months, yeah.
I will do that so that we can have a full officer, list, no one else.
That would be nice to get off of the little item here.
I thought you were gonna suggest drawing lots.
Put your
name in a hat.
Yeah, we're just about there.
I don't anticipate, not being here, but yeah, that would be basically,
That's a good point, yeah.
being able to fill in if I am not here. So, yeah, I guess, do we have, any motions to elect Vice Chair David Benak? I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rob for the motion, and
Second.
second, okay, is there any discussion?
I think you'd be a fine candidate.
Okay, and then that was Rachel for the second, if that wasn't clear. So all in favor, either raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we have a vice chair.
Thank you.
Ooh, thank you, David.
Thank you.
$0. Okay, and then any new applicants by chance? We still have one empty seat for anyone listening that is a City of Kalamazoo resident. Jean, do we have any applicants? I didn't see anything. I would assume I would have seen
I
it,
did not
but,
receive any.
okay.
Nothing online, no one's applied.
I usually get it through the clerk.
Yeah, they would
Oh, yeah.
email you?
I'll
Okay.
forward it to you, okay.
Sharon, on that, for clarification, at a city commission meeting just recent, I can't remember if it's the last one or one back, they were adding somebody to the retirement committee or something along those lines. And there
Okay.
was a discussion about the person not living in the city, and they said that was okay.
I don't know if that's different for that one, but in general,
And
that
it's
is,
different for NFP
yeah,
too,
that was
based on
for
qualifications.
expertise, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, this
That's my
one
understanding of that,
is,
that particular position.
it's
Yeah, I
always been
wasn't
my
sure
understanding
what
for
the-
this one
If that was changed,
yeah.
or if that's commission specific.
I think, yeah, I think it would be
Okay.
commission specific, and normally it is in the city limits. But yeah, so I've never heard otherwise for ECC specifically as well. Okay, so nothing there. Ongoing business, zoning update, they haven't done the official vote yet. That is potentially coming next month, if I remember correctly. But maybe you have more info if you were able to.
I was not able to attend the
Okay.
last one.
Okay. And so basically it's still moving along, for there. There was proposed, community, petition trying to ask for green space zoning. And they did respond to that saying that they would entertain that idea, but they didn't foresee that being possible within this current zoning update. So that was potentially good news. And then the next item is what we started talking about last month, yard management techniques is what we decided to call that, I think. Anyone want to start with that?
I would.
Okay.
I interviewed a lot of people who, either take care of their lawns or have somebody else do it. And I gave them the information about what the blowers do as opposed to, gas blower versus an electric blower and versus raking and, collecting the clippings and blowing them off or letting, mulching them and the whole bit. And about 3 out of 4 people, I talked to about 10 people, but 3 out of 4 people were totally ignorant about everything we know about the health of the ground layer by the grass and the differences in these yard care techniques. And I was kind of surprised how ignorant they were. And so I think maybe we could have a couple of pretty serious publications, although there's been a little bit in the view from the curb. I thought a lot of education might make anything we want to do with this a whole lot more acceptable, easily acceptable, and change some practices just once people get information,
Right.
they use it. I was just kind of shocked at how little they knew.
Yeah,
And I think that's, for sure, we ought to do the educating no matter what we do with regulations. I think we ought to do that. And the other thing is, I talked to a couple of the people who make a living, I talked to 3 people, who make a living taking care of yards and all, with their mowers and their blowers and all that. And every one of them said, we'd love to go to electric. The reason we don't is the recharge and the length of charge that goes into electric blowers compared to gasoline. You just fill the tank and you go, and it's good for the rest of the day. And that's what they like about it. But they too, they knew it was stinky, but they didn't have any idea what they were breathing in. So that's, but they would like to go to it. They say they're lighter, they'd like to use them, but it's impractical on for their schedule. So I don't know if, I'm sure they've checked out the different equipment available in the whole county and in the world, but, I don't think there's any way to speed that up and make them happy. But they didn't want to do it for that reason, so they kind of object to that. And they too know they gotta wear their ear things or they're gonna go deaf, they're so darn loud. So they were fully aware of everything except the health aspects of it. However, they would be very willing to go to electric. That's just 3 of them, but I'm guessing others are kind of on board with that. If they had the carrying capacity, the length of time of use, and electric blowers would work. None of them wanted to go to raking. They said it takes way too much time and they couldn't make a living doing it.
Sure.
And, so that's what I got out of that dinky little survey. But I was kind of surprised to hear they were all willing to do it, you know, because I just was surprised. But you could, you know, we're sort of stuck on that thing. We may have to force them to do it, I don't know. But that's the information I got.
yeah. As I was thinking about it a little bit more like that too. Education, I think, is a really helpful thing to just get people thinking about it. Like, I think there are probably many more people that are just not aware, and I like the approach of giving people information so they can understand it themselves versus starting with something like a ban that they won't understand, which I don't know if you all follow some of the discussion with the bike infrastructure and stuff that's happening around town. But there's just a lot of people that aren't understanding the benefits. And I think that could be a similar case if we would try to go for anything like a ban. I think helping up people understand and choose differently on their own could help.
Well, a little point in history might be helpful too. Way back in the early 70s when we got the burning ban, I had a couple of the people who sell these things in a hardware store really give me a hard time because, you know, that's one of their favorite sale items was these little burning tubs, whatever you call them. And everybody else I talked to was so happy to get that done. So you have a little commercial aspect to it, and they hated it, but they got over it real fast. You know, they found, I mean, they adjusted. It's not like at the end of the world if you can't sell a burner.
Hopefully not, yeah.
Yeah, but I think people would find if they can't use the gasoline-powered engines, I think we might have to wait 20 years before somebody figures out a better battery. I think they would adjust, and I'll bet you they're smart enough that they can find a different kind of work schedule that they could manage within one season, how to make it all work faster and cut it down to electric sounds and speeds, decibels and speeds. So they can scream and yell about it, but I think that's just about everybody wants it quieter. They hate those things. So I don't think there's anything wrong or tough politically by putting it through. They will adjust.
You mentioned decibels. There are regulations for how loud people can be in general already, but I
They're not
don't.
enforced.
Yeah, they're not enforced.
Especially with lawn services.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
And there actually, as somebody was pointing this out, there is a clause in the city's noise ordinance that essentially exempts lawn service.
Okay, that I
Oh,
wasn't
does it?
familiar
Yeah.
with. I just have friends that play music and they have their own like decibel level, so they know how loud they are on the street, and I was just picturing that, but.
Mhm.
But I think you're right. I don't think this is as controversial as we think it is. I think it is more, yes, there's gonna be some pushback, but I don't think it'll be as bad as the bike lane. Looking at around the country, there's now, the most recent number I saw, there's 150 municipalities that have done some version of this. One of the things, and then I noticed that there's a range between 1 year and 5 years for the phase in. So there has to be some phase in time. Another thing that almost all of the policies that exist have some kind of an incentive structure to help particularly lawn care services make the transition. Everything I saw, it was cities that were providing those funds. But do we have any connections to Consumers Power? Because I know that Consumers does incentivize like electric vehicles. Like I've had an electric car for a long time, so it was a different system of incentives, but they bought the charger and paid for it to be installed on my house. Because of course they want more electricity going for cars instead of, so, could we see if we can get an agreement with, Consumers Power to provide a fund to help, businesses make the transition?
Okay.
Yeah, who has a contact there?
We really have contact, any of us can reach out, but just
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, I mean, that Jim had pointed out, there needs to be education.
Mhm.
I mean, it would look very, I think it would look very awkward for the city to try to do this without some real good rationale and some studies of how other communities have done it. And a lot of the noise, you know, when we hit the fall, is from people, not the lawn services.
Yeah.
And I thought the city of Washington had a pretty good idea where they just said, here's the hours when you can use it.
Yeah.
And at least that gives them kind of a beginning
Right.
to the education process of saying, you know, 6 a.m. on Sunday morning is not okay. Or is, and I've seen people blow in after dark in the fall.
Right.
You know, it's like, okay, what are you aiming at?
You know, I was thinking it too, but then I thought, you know, it's an equity issue for people who don't work regular shifts.
Yeah.
You know, if you work night shift and then we say they can blow the leaves out in your neighbor's yard while you're trying to get your sleep, I think that becomes a problem. So I was thinking the same thing, and I thought, how does this affect people with different schedules?
Yeah, it's a good,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a thought of the use of the leaf blowers is entirely different until we get into the week that your leaves are gonna get picked up.
That's
And then
right.
it goes crazy.
It does.
But in the meantime, they're blowing everything, you know, they're blowing driveways and decks and every little leaf that falls down, they go on forever. So I think we could make,
I think
somehow
people blow
loosen
the
up on
snow
those
off their
rules.
cars with them.
Yeah, right, really?
Yes.
You open the doors, let her go, pizza and everything. No, I think that if we could maybe lighten up on the week that you're gonna have your leaves picked up. Because, you know, you're working day and night, and then you come home and it's late, you're trying to get this stuff out there, and so that's just 2 weeks per neighborhood in the whole year. I mean, that's not much noise to put up with compared to all spring and all summer and all fall. I mean, that's another possibility to throw in there as a,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
true. They're late, so it extends it, so really it turns into like an extra week of everybody doing it.
Yeah, but at least there's an understanding and a practical enforcement.
But, yeah, that's something we can think of. But I'd like to see us find a way to incentivize the transition after we do some good education.
Right.
So that we don't have to have all these qualifications to just make the transition.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see, I don't have a contact with the local paper, but, you know, and obviously the number of people that read the Gazette is much more limited, but there are some all-electric lawn services. And it would be nice to highlight a few of those, just to talk about why, with the owners, on why they made that choice.
Right.
And then as I go through my neighborhood walking my dog, I now see some yard signs that says, you know, quiet electric lawn service. So starting to happen a little bit, but these are in, you know, households, not like, you know, like where I live, up on Blakesley, there's many, city contracted mowing services, and they come through and they mow dirt and dust, even when it's not, even when it hasn't grown in a month. I mean, I just think that they're contractually obligated. I think that's stupid, and that's a whole other issue, but, you know, why come and mow just so that you can collect?
Yeah.
But,
But I really like that idea about publicizing these companies that have done that.
well, at least it makes people start to think that it's possible, and there may be other anecdotal success stories in, you know, large, like people that show up with, you know, the easy turn mowers that are all electric as well, and how do they do that, and what's that upfront cost, and, you know.
It'd be another way to talk to people who are actually using it in their business. So obviously, they're getting some kind of a return on their investment.
Right.
And that issue that, you know, they were talking about the length of the battery, how long it lasts. Well, obviously, they're doing something to.
Right, and battery
Yeah,
technology has improved a lot in just the last few years
Yeah.
as far as the rechargeable tools. But I think that, you know, I could research trying to find, some local businesses that are doing this and are successful, and then seeing, you know, can we get it in the view from the curb? I mean, we can't plug, the view of the curb is such a small publication, it may not be able to have extensive articles, but it would be nice to have some of this information in the community to say, here's some examples. And that's, I spent a lot of time in the recycling and household hazardous waste business. What we always looked for was early adapters. Hey, don't throw that paint, don't throw those fluorescent tubes in the trash.
Right.
Oh, here's why. And then as different municipalities started buying into this, just as Chris would probably talk about, you know, you need people that are early adapters to new practices that aren't gonna fight you on the buy-in, and then then maybe there's that last 20% that are kicking and screaming, but they're gonna do it anyhow.
In thinking about what we saw, because you mentioned, the city contract, anything we put forward, I think, has to include the city. Because there was one of those, articles that they talked about, their city was not, following the same policy. They were gonna adopt it later. I think that's such a terrible look that we're not gonna get any buy-in if the city's gonna say, we're sticking with gas, but you have to go to electric. Right.
Yeah.
Agreed, agreed.
So do we wanna, like, have some things that we're all trying to do, or some of us try to do? Like, you wanna look up, who the early adopters are? You wanna look into incentives?
I can reach out to consumers, see what I can come up
See
with.
if that's a thing. Then I will look into some education, what that looks like in other places.
I will keep an eye out. There is one company that does several yards in my neighborhood that uses electric, equipment and, organic fertilizer. I'll see if I can find their sign, get the name.
Okay.
Yeah. If you wouldn't mind sharing it, then
Yeah.
that might be one of the success
Actually, I
stories.
think it's orange and yellow or something. But I'll see if I can find it.
Okay, great. Then we could move on unless there's any other comments.
I like the incentive.
Yeah.
If I'm due to buy a new lawnmower, whatever, the next time I buy, what's gonna make me consider? If there was some incentive and I've got cost X and cost Y, and they're pretty much the same, but if there was a little bit of help towards the electric one, I might lean that way. Oh, if you buy, that's how the original electric car incentives were. There was something, some reason to push you over that fence just a little bit, you know, and not just lawnmowers, but any and all of that range of lawn care equipment. Yep, whatever that incentive might be.
Right.
Yep.
Good. Okay, then, Chris, are you ready? And do you have technology, like, needs, I guess, as far as connecting to the Zoom?
Gonna try to help me out. I just
Okay.
have one photo to share.
Okay.
Do you wanna share it now?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you
All right.
for
Let's
considering
work.
that. Hello, my name is Chris Broadbent. This is actually my second time speaking to the Environmental Concerns Committee, I should say with the Environmental Concerns Committee. So it's good to be back this time as an employee. So I work with Wendy Burlingham and the Public Services team as the Solid Waste Coordinator. So I handle the contracts with Republic Services, Bestway, and others to do the brush pickups, the recycling pickups twice a month or bi-weekly, for the bulk trash, up to 7.5 cubic yards of trash. Gene had helped to put up a photo. What I'm, I guess, kind of saying is July's stats at a glance from the Republic recycling events. So we held July 22nd EPS Foam Recycling Day over at Mayor's Riverfront Park, where we collected, in conjunction with KVCC, 1.5 semi-trailers full of foam, which we then sent on to DART Corporation up in Mason, Michigan, which I had the privilege of going to visit one day, my first month. Assure you that lunchtime is not the right time to show up at a manufacturing facility to get anything. So fortunately, I was able to get some help and return with the bags for that event. If you haven't been to the foam recycling event, I would encourage you to think about getting your number 6 EPS foam recycled there. October 28th, coming up on a Saturday in October. At that event, one of our community partners, Chupon and Sons, certified R2 e-waste recycler, helped us to recycle 3,672 pounds of e-waste, TVs, computers, printers, even 8 alkaline batteries. So we're excited about that and our other partners who participate in those events. Quarterly, I think it's a great opportunity to recycle more and better. And I look forward to being a part. Last month, July, we sent 156.6 tons of recyclable material from the single stream service, and that equates to about 7.5 semi-trucks full of materials down to Elkhart, Indiana, this is a photo of our materials recovery facility, also known as a MRF. Down in Elkhart, a company called Waste Away and Recycle Works, both divisions of HIMCO, Inc., do the sorting and baling of our recyclables, which they then sell to secondary markets. So that's information that I get monthly from the contractor, and I'd be happy to share on a regular basis with this group. Last month, we also were able to service or add 48 carts to the recycling curbside program. That's requests that people are calling into the 311 staff here at City Hall, and then they send on to us, and we send on to the contractor, and then they deliver the 96-gallon recycle carts. I was also excited to learn and confirm that Solo cups, Red Party cups, are recyclable curbside. They don't have to be red. They can be any color. Interesting history of the Solo cup. Started as like those cone dispenser cups and grew into what we might know today. Additionally, the number 6 polystyrene coffee lids are also eligible to be recycled curbside.
Little plastic things you put on top of the Starbucks thing?
Yes.
Oh.
Those lids, yeah, as long as they have the number 6 symbol on them,
Yeah.
can go in the recycled cart, curbside. Clean,
All right.
empty, dry, good to go in there.
Mm-hmm.
The cups, unfortunately, as well as cardboard cartons, are not eligible, based on some information from our contractors and the MRF, or recovery facility. We're at about the threshold regionally for what's accepted in the cardboard bales with those cartons in order to be contaminated.
You mean the plastic lining cards?
Yeah,
or-
plastic aluminum lined cartons,
Yeah.
like for liquids,
Yeah.
milks, alternative milks, coffee creamers.
Oh, no.
Yep.
Orange juice.
You're talking about I'm trying to think of the manufacturer, there's Tetra Paks?
That's one of them, yeah.
Yeah, because like 90% of what you see in the store for,
Lots of trees.
you know, chicken broth and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
Not
very well.
recyclable, right?
Not curbside, there may be alternatives, but right now, it's currently not accepted curbside by our recycling contractor. And
Yeah.
that's because we're at
Really?
the threshold for contamination. So if we said it was, we would got way into the red.
How are we gonna let people, I didn't know this.
Yeah, see, that, I know.
I mean, it's an education thing, so I'm like, oh, so I can do the lid, but I can't do the cup.
Yeah.
I don't think people understand.
Mhm.
I just, not that they don't want to.
What a great opportunity to download the Recycle Coach app.
It's
This
great.
app we started using with the city a few years back, but they can send push notifications about what is recyclable, what goes curbside. They have a little quiz where you can interact with some of that information. It's called Recycle Coach. It's free. It will also let you know when your brush and your bulk trash pickup days are, as well as your recycle days, with a notification for any and all addresses you want to enter into that within the city and the zoo. And look for more current and updated stuff to come through that channel, as well as road closures sometimes get a push notification.
And water quality
Waterman.
issues.
Yeah, at Public Services,
Mhm.
multiple team members are using that as a way, to let you know what's going on. Looks like you had a question.
Well, I was wondering if those information channels are ever published in the View from the Curb.
I think so, but if
Okay.
not, they.
I don't remember them being there, but maybe they were.
Yeah, the Recycle Coach app
Yeah.
that we were talking
I've
about.
seen it
Is
advertised.
it in there? Okay.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Thank you.
The new View from the Curb should be available on the website now for September.
Okay.
Question, what happens to the e-waste?
They have a really expensive, machine that it goes and breaks down into the different, there's a few different processes, but the last resort is, getting down to the materials and being able to separate them via these very large.
And then they're sold in the secondary
Smelt them,
market, or?
I think they smelt them. Yeah, they smelt them and recover the metal.
E-waste encompasses a lot of different things. We're still clearing out the historic cathode ray tubes, which for most e-waste, it's true. I worked at Household Hazardous Waste for 25 years, and we saw, just in the last couple of years, the first slowdown in old televisions and CRT monitors. It's still happening every day of the week that people bring them in. It's a real loss leader for the electronic recycling industry because of the leaded glass, which means it has to be separated, the frit has to be separated from the electron tube, and it has to be done in a controlled negative air environment, wet sod. A lot of the other stuff is either dismantled manually, and then some of it gets down to being ground, but it's, we have so much of that waste that Household Hazardous Waste continues to fill several semis every 2 weeks. That's just that kind of material. Sends it off for processing. I have a question for you.
Yeah, real quick, can I just add to the, e-waste recovery that, our partner is a R2 certified, facility, which is a, national standard for how they operate and maintain and take care of, all the materials. Plus, in terms of data management, they have a certification to appropriately handle that should corporations or businesses or private entities, want to make sure that when they pass on these electronic devices, that their data is being securely destroyed.
Before you go off e-waste, I just wanted, I just listened to a program a couple of days ago. We really need to be emphasizing this because of the environmental impacts of not doing it. Right now, lithium, like mining, we're only capturing 1% of lithium that's thrown away and recycling. We could really curtail lithium mining if we could start getting into some of that into the recycle stream.
I think it was 2022, or maybe it was end of 22, early 2023, I saw people going around with cameras looking in people's waste, recycle bins.
That was an audit.
But I never saw the results of that, and I'm wondering if you have compliance results of how much of the waste was, the recyclables were actually contaminated. Because from my experience in just looking in neighborhoods, people throw away all kinds of contaminated materials because they still have food in them. There's still caps, they still have milk, they still have salsa, all this kind of stuff. And my understanding is that can ruin a whole truck worth of recyclable materials, which ends up being landfill.
Right.
So, do we have that kind of information, or are you attempting to get that kind of information?
I can appreciate that question. I did not bring the compliance results or contamination info with me. I'm sure that I,
Yeah, that was before you started for sure, but
Yeah,
I remember
before
when that
you
was
started,
happening too.
yeah, what you had asked made me think of a couple of things. What I do know about the Feet on the Street program from last quarter was it was grant funded with a partnership called the Recycle Partnership, who is also, supporting our department work this next, season and into next year with 2 other grants. One is kind of the follow-up to the Feet on the Street program. What we've learned from that was that there are 2,100 households who have a recycle cart who did not set their cart out for whatever reason, 8 cycles.
Wow.
So 2 months.
Yeah,
2 months of time not to recycle. And so what we're working on first is streamlining all the carts to be the same. Recyclables. So you might notice there are historically different carts, with different colored lids that mean different things. So one of our goals with this next wave of the grant is to get all the carts the same, probably the light blue lid, for the most size. And then, we're going to be working with the partnership again and Republic, and Prairie Robotics, to better understand which addresses are not putting it in. And then we're going to be sending out, these small bins that people can use in their home to collect their recyclables. Clean, empty, and dry is kind of the preferred methodology for that, and what our contractor would coach us to have people do. Clean, empty, dry, get all that food out of there if you can, just helps mitigate pests and mitigate smells and stuff away, and make it cleaner for everybody. What you don't see in the photo, or didn't see in the photo, is that there are 2 teams of 75 people who are sorting the recyclables, in addition to the ever-present AI machines that are working, magnets and air blowers and conveyor belts, make all that happen. So keeping the recyclables clean helps those people do their job in a cleaner environment. What I gathered from our visit to the MRF was it's kind of a tertiary issue, but it is best to have the recyclables clean and dry. Just make them. So for the next phase of that grant work from the Feet on the Street program, we're going to be trying to communicate with all households in the city about what is recyclable and the clean, empty, dry protocols and how to best help the process and participate, and then give people these supplemental inside, like I do at home, and probably many of you do, collect it all in the kitchen or in your basement or breezeway or whatever, and then take it out to the cart when it's time to empty that bin or take the cart to the curb.
When I visited them over 2 years ago at the MRF, with Wendy, they were saying that they had an over 90% recycle rate. So that's what they told me.
They said 95%, 95 to 98. A large part of that being they think they're one of the only MRFs in the area that will run the recyclables through twice on the conveyor belt. So whatever they don't capture and sort out, they have a giant air gun at the end of the line that blows everything back onto the first conveyor. Before it gets out into the landfill or whatever's outside the building. I didn't necessarily look through there, but then they will kind of put that back on the line and sort it again and give it a second try.
Also, Also, they're not a dirty MRF, so, that's a separate thing that we don't have to deal with here. That is when there's enough contamination, they would send to the landfill. That's what some places do, but that's not the case
Okay.
for us.
Yeah, and this facility is processing 450 tons of material, daily. Kind of a lot, and when we think, like, we sent 156.5 tons last month of recyclables. There's a lot of other areas in the area that are participating and sending. Overall, I'd say it was a confidence-building trip for me and Justin, who went, as well. Did you get a question?
Yeah, 90% seems like an amazing number.
Yeah.
Way better than I thought. And I always heard it kind of referred to as like wish cycling, where
Yeah.
if residents aren't informed, they just toss anything in any condition and wish that they did the right thing. Like, so first, ideally, the city would want to inform the residents to do their part and like everything, but we're only dealing with like 10%, but I mean, that 10% goes down, does it ruin like a whole batch if it does get through? And then like, where does the kind of cost get passed on to? Does the MRF pass it back to the city and be like, hey, you had this much that caused us extra work, and so the city passes it back on in taxes or whatever? Or does MRF like refuse to work with Kalamazoo if it reaches a certain tolerance, and like residents can't do their part? Like, where does the buck get passed to next, and like what would the option to prevent wish cycling or whatever?
Great question. So, I think about the example with the cartons, the, liquid, cold cartons, or Tetra Paks, or aseptic grade 52 cartons. So, I've been asking about that because I know that there's a lot of materials, at least that I consume, that come in those cartons. And I've been wish cycling way to a degree, sometimes, maybe not always. And so what I got back from the MRF was, okay, we're at the threshold for that contamination. Are buyers of the cardboard bales okay with the amount of contamination we have currently in the region? If we were to increase that amount at this time, because they're not separating that out from the other cardboard material, they're just baling cardboard as one. Invest technology and people and space to make that happen. So they don't have a buyer for that material, so it gets baled in with the cardboard, where they do have a buyer for it. I don't know the specific answer to it, who would bear the cost, but I would imagine a bale that gets declined just gets declined, and produce industry or grocery industry, when we had credits for stuff that was bad, it was just, we threw it out, or composted it, or got rid of it, or whatever, and then we got a credit from seller. So maybe it's something like, oh yeah, maybe they balance their books. I haven't seen anything in the contract that would say that.
I mean, overall, it sounds pretty good. It'd just be like if rumors started going around, and then like residents just were less active of recycling anything. But I mean, overall, it's optimistic.
Yeah, the recycling program is paid by the millage. So that includes our hiring of the contractor.
Notes for another time that I don't have memorized on that, but, I have heard that recyclers will, that when they're selling it with a certain contamination rate, they will get less money for selling it, so they will eventually pass it on if there's more contamination. Like, that's just how that's gonna happen. But we're at threshold and not over at the moment, and we aren't the only ones that go to that MRF, but, that's a side note. I have another question about, recent changes I've seen in the view for the curb that surprised me. We used to have numbers 1 through 7 of plastic listed in there, and that is no longer the case. And I was wondering if you were familiar with where we are, or what caused that change, since you've way more recently been able to go to them, or what you know about that?
Thanks. I think it's an always changing thing because the MRF is looking for buyers of
Yeah.
the materials. As far as I understand it right now, including number 6 polystyrene, plastics can't go in. Number 4s, which is kind of like our bags, our film, cannot go in because we can't accept plastic bags or plastic film in the cart because it will jam the machines and dirty really quick, easily, liquid, dirt,
Bag?
grime.
Can't, but technically it wasn't because of the resin code. That's a type, so that's different. So like for number 6, you can't put in EPS, but you can put PS, polystyrene, the hard plastic.
Yeah.
So, similarly with the other ones, but I do think it's a lot different in general. And the store drop-off will take any of the number 4 in, like, my bags and stuff like that.
And I think like number 3 is PVC
It is.
pipe, which is also not recyclable.
Yeah.
Outside at this time.
Yeah, and that was another follow-up, because I've been learning about this a lot more recently, and I heard that overall, PVC has pretty much a 0% statistic of recycle rate, so I was curious how I had seen that ever in there, because the amount of different additives that they have, for whether it's pipe or other items, I can show you like a slide of all of that, but it's like 30% of it is pipe, but there's all sorts of other uses for PVC that, it's super, toxic to process, so there's places that just don't take it, so I don't understand how that ever could have been in there, basically. Sorry.
No, I think it's obviously a complicated process. We're talking about multiple businesses who are involved in this, not to mention servicing. For us, it's over 19,000 single-family homes plus another. So it's a big complex, and the information is always changing. And one thing I think our team is doing is trying to find out the accurate information and then share that. And I've mentioned a few repeatedly. I think that's fantastic. Twice a year, seasonal newsletter. It's got lots of great information in it. Not seasonally, not just with the solid waste programs, but really with everything that's happening in the curb lawn or the right-of-way spaces. And so I would encourage you to continue to ask about more clear and accurate information there, and pledge that I'll work to bring that accuracy that you asked. If I could, one thing your question had also made me think about, I read in the contract for our recycling. Once the materials are in the cart at the curb lawn, they become city property. Once the contractor collects that material and puts it in their vehicle, it becomes the property of the contractor. Maybe to a degree, if there is contamination, whatever issues in that cart gets collected, it goes on to the contractor, and it becomes part of their responsibility to mitigate that or take that from there. Recyclables are sent to the transfer station over at Gambrit Circle, where they're sorted lightly into the trucks to be sent down to. They how to review that or in their relationship with recycling.
That's kind of interesting, because if people are walking around, if city people are walking around to do the survey or whatever, that's one thing. And I know the trucks have cameras, once it's flipped over and collected or whatever, but they're gonna watch it close enough, we're like, oh, that's something I don't want, and they turn it away because they don't want it to be their property.
But they could.
That's fast. Yeah, that's interesting to see how fast it changes hands and responsibilities and stuff.
And technically, they could reject it, from what I remembered, which is what I wanted to talk to you about, because it's been a few years, but I read through all of those pages, and it was a lot for that contract, for what they claim that they do, and another time.
Stranger.
I have a question, and maybe I should direct it to you as well. This has been enlightening. I'm curious, you mentioned it's collected and then lightly sorted. Is that a source for, removal of contaminants there?
I guess maybe lightly sorted might have been the wrong way to describe that. As far as I know, it's organized and then sent
Okay.
to the MRF for sorting. So it's possible they look at it to some degree, because they have people who are operating the machine, all that stuff.
It just seems,
At the MRF, it gets sorted out with what they accept and what they don't.
yeah. Well, I'm having a hard time, getting my hand around that 90%
Yeah,
acceptance rate.
I think so.
That's, I thought, it was my understanding, please weigh in and help enlighten me, that single stream recycling was like the bottom level to get people to start to change behavior, ultimately trying to get you to sort. And, when you look at other communities adopting it, I mean, I have been told like it's almost a waste. That's just what I've been told. And so what you guys are telling me is, actually, it's much more effective. And I mean, if we're getting 90% now, why would we even get to the point where we're separating food scraps and that sort of thing? Which ultimately is where we want to go, right? Or at least start to break some of it out. When glass and cardboard mix, breakage is contaminated, is my understanding. So help me understand, is another, are we, I could feel you wanted to answer this.
Yeah.
Are we moving towards getting beyond the single stream, and help me understand why that's not what I had been told is like a secondary dump site?
so a few things. What I heard about the transfer station, and I didn't get to tour that yet, but I was planning on it at some point, was it's really just to consolidate to a larger vehicle to be able to transfer. So I didn't hear, they said that it's just dumping it and then transporting it because it's way smaller trucks that are going around than what goes down to the MRF. And then also, I mean, they mentioned the contamination rate of like when those cardboard, cartons go within the cardboard. So technically for them, their leaf from facility is the 95 or whatever percent. But that doesn't mean that the next user or the next recycler is able to do 100% of what they were gathered. They know that there's a percentage of contamination there. So always improving it is gonna increase the value of the materials, which will increase the efficiency and environmental footprint in general. And so in comparison of single stream and like the Bottleville, for example, I just went on a tour yesterday for the Bottleville facility in Wixom where all of the deposits go. And they have a like 98-ish% rate
Like
of,
sparkles look so clean.
because it's so much higher, and they showed comparison of like what it looks like if it's coming from one place versus another, and when it's able to be that streamlined, it is just wildly better, basically, and higher value material. So I don't know if that answers all of the questions.
Well, I'm still like I just don't want to be skeptical. 90% just seems pretty darn good, and why would we want, if you get to other cities where they actually separate so much more, to get to the point where everything's clear. If we're getting 90% acceptance rate, then why would we want to improve on that? I don't know if I'm asking it correctly. I guess I'm still like, really? 90%?
I think you're asking a good question, and I think Sharon partially answered. So I think
Well,
you're asking.
you answered for separating.
Right,
And
so
I've seen that
I think
too.
you're asking about, we don't have 90% from my curb to the next, to what that recycled material is used for. Okay, so the big picture. We have 90% that arrives at the MRF, that leaves the MRF.
Organized.
So there could be 10% that makes it into post-consumer products.
I'd be happy with over 50%. I guess
Right.
that's where I was
Right.
coming from. I thought it
Yeah.
was much lower.
I think the
but
big
maybe-
thing is we don't know the post-consumer product use of what we produce.
And a lot of those are confidential.
Yeah.
Because it's a business that's converted.
It's hard to get anything out of the private entities of super accurate information. I was just curious if you mentioned the stat of 21,000 cards not being used in 8 successive cycles.
Sorry, 2,100?
Oh, 2,100.
I misspoke, sorry, 2,100.
So what I would like to know is, do we have a recycling percentage rate for those that have cards and those that are multiple housing, multiple units? Where, like, let's say we have, 6,000 cards out there, and on a regular basis, we have 2,000 that are being used. Do we have that kind of information? Because I think that's probably where the education part will really be important, is that, you know, we might have a really good hardcore group of folks that are recycling every week, but then do we know what that, you know, what are we shooting for the rest of the non-recyclers?
Question, I think part of the goal of our next phase of this network in the fall will be to better understand that number.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because that's, you know, it's, oh, you could say, oh, we're doing 90%, but of what? So, I mean, that's our success rate in recycling, but how much of it are we really, I mean, being realistic, how much are we really capturing? And I fear that that is really small compared to how much solid, you know, how much potential recyclables are out there. And that's not anything on you or the program, it's just how do you change behavior? Because, I mean, we've been watching recycling programs for the last 30, 40 years go through many iterations and, you know, different success rates depending on people's enthusiasm for it or seeing the benefit in it.
Yeah, I think that our work with the Recycle Partnership in the near future is gonna tell you, Republic, our contractor, will say our city recycled 156.5 tons of material last month alone. Historical data to this group about that particular metric. I could find that information, at least through the last fiscal year, further back in time. So I think that's a usable metric that we can continue to look at, offer up that one. Amount of recycling that's happening, and I would agree, there's mountains to move of all this material, and real opportunities for all of us to get further involved or continue to be involved.
Another question. There's a movement afoot, my organization, even our state senator, and I think the state rep from Portage, to expand the bottle bill to include water bottles and other liquid, you know, wine bottles, bottle here. And curious what the MRF would feel about that. You know, it's taking product out of the waste stream that would make it worthwhile for their, or, you know, we're taking away business if we were to do that. Go to Shupan or Wixom, folks over there, which would be good, but
yeah,
just curious what.
I definitely don't speak for them, but I would say the attitude I garnered from taking the tour is that these are people who are doing the work every day,
right,
every shift of sorting this stuff out. If there's less stuff for them to sort,
and less money to make.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there'd be less money as a result of that. It's possible to find a way to get into that kind of line of those particular items. You raise a great question that for us talks about we're sending our recyclables across the state border to Indiana. Right. So that opens up kind of other questions. I don't think Indiana does the deposits or bottle bill, if that's what we're talking about. So
they do water bottles, right? Or
and they're receiving all of the
wine bottles
and stuff from Indiana, and every like 100-mile radius or whatever is something like what they are taking. So they take.
That's kind of interesting. We take their garbage and we send them our recyclables.
Yeah, I think those are great. I mean, all of you have raised really excellent questions.
You've done a good job putting up with it.
Yeah, to get you to be less pessimistic about it.
I'm enough. Okay.
Are there any other questions? I know I have one more. Is there any speak of composting on a community level by chance?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit, and I don't think it's going to give you the answer you want, but the city is composting. Right now, it's happening. The leaf collection materials are picked up start November 6th this year. The trees cooperate and the leaves are on the ground. And that material gets, taken to spot over on East Michigan, Shippers Lane, site where it gets composted by Morgan Composting, Michigan-based company that creates a product called Dairy Dew, line of materials.
Yeah.
So our leaves from the city that are collected are going into their product. Additionally, all of the material that was collected in the February storm, and they had like opened up the site across the street from where I work at 415 Stockbridge. The street there, they had a dump site for a lot of that got shipped up in a giant tumbler, chipper, crane, conveyor belt, semi-trailer machine that we rented for a month. And the public works crews, before I had started, had done a fantastic job of getting all of that turned into wood chips. So we talking about how to move those wood chips, get them back into the ground. So those two programs are happening year-round, all the time. Got a great relationship with the contractor who's doing that work with the forestry team, in the storm, and probably will in future storms, being turned into another.
So talk of expansion on that, to household compostable things? Yet?
Not anything really that I can talk about. Would be a good thing, except like you all.
Good answer. Okay, cool. If there's not anything else, we can move on unless you have any final
No,
things.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to join you all in talking about this work, and you have to come back whenever you want to.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We wish you well in your new position, yeah. Lots to take on.
Okay. Yeah, you can answer that. Okay, so we can go on to the subcommittee reports, starting with NFP Review Board.
Yeah, let me call up. Say it right. At the last meeting, there is a project you may or may not be familiar with. It's at 209 East Stockbridge. It combines a number of lots. It's called Hawthorne, is the overall name of the development. That plan is working its way through the various city department reviews. It did come before the NFP Review Board. They did not have to ask for any variances. They were already within compliance of the amount of tree removal, the amount of tree replacement. Trees of significant size were noted and attempts to save those. So we didn't have to grant them any variance, but just wanted you to know. So we did conditionally approve their plan, contingent on approval with the city's stormwater plan. That area is prone to flooding. We've heard reports about that area before, between Stockbridge and Lake Street to the north. And so there's some areas there. An interesting thing is, though the location of the building is at the south, so it's more on Stockbridge, the property extends north up to Lake. I think both sanitary and storm is going to be funneled to the north because the infrastructure along Lake Street can handle it better, and this should help things there. There are wetlands, there are regulated wetlands on that property. None of that is planned to. That's the news from NFP.
Is
Thank you.
that property, it's not the old bingo hall and that
No.
empty parking lot area
No.
across from the waterworks?
And what's interesting, and there may be some difference in public perception of this area right now. A lot of it right now is viewed as vacant woodland property. This is a development, but in many ways it's a redevelopment. There were parcels that had structures on within that overall lot. Historically, they're just not there anymore, and the land has kind of reverted to somewhat of a natural state. But it is really redevelopment of previously developed properties. I believe it's on the order of 36 or so.
36.
Yes, residential units will be provided within there. So, yeah,
Okay. Anything for air and water quality?
not outside of if there's going to be a report about graphic packaging.
Okay. And then Gail is not here. I believe she said she didn't have anything on that one for wildlife and natural resources update. And then we don't have planning commission update.
Not, I'll have it next month.
Okay. And then tree committee, I believe also didn't meet. Everyone got the same email as me, so correct me. And then it sounded like policy and management council, that's me. Basically more discussion on the ongoing project for increasing the, or improving, I should say, the water quality. I'm going to try to say that clearer this time. And yeah, so that's just ongoing. There wasn't really anything crazy new besides, yeah, that ongoing business. How about Parks and Rec?
I did not see anything this month, and I didn't hear anything, so I have nothing to comment.
Okay. And Tomsey River and Watershed Council?
Nothing new worthy of
Okay, and then we did the wellhead protection last month, and odor task force,
no meetings.
okay, and then we
Are
just,
you on that, or am I on that?
I think I am now.
you could both be on it.
I've been on it. Are you joining it too now? Do you get the invite?
I haven't gotten any invites, but Aaron did send me the.
Oh, Aaron sent you
most
too?
recent- Yeah, the most recent, publication.
Well, good, it'd be nice to have an ally on that. I know, but they haven't met
A while,
since all the recent stuff.
okay. Yeah, we definitely love an update if there's gonna be more at some point there. And then community sustainability plan, we had our update there, and then tentative for November. And can we check the, lines to see if there's any phone comments? This would be the time to call in. I don't know if we have the phone number that we can read out. I should write that in here. There it is. So if you wanted to call right now would be the time, 888-382-9556. And then we can check the audience here as well, once that's going. I think there was gonna be a problem with getting Facebook. I don't think that one works today. Is that
They
correct?
notified me that it should be on.
Oh, it is? Okay, then I will look there to see if there's anything.
I'm not getting any calls.
Do we have any
Okay.
voicemail?
Yeah, that's
Do we have
not
any
my
public?
experience from this.
Okay.
Let's see here. Okay, I have no idea what that was referring to for that one.
We have a audience.
Yeah, audience comment, let's do that next.
Thanks, my name is Tom House. Earlier, I created that, I was happy that the city planning would be a good conversation about it after I sat down. Look at that at the next. There has been, this is my only second meeting here, and conversation value of something like that, or does the actually one or more zones, 3
I mean, it's hard to have everyone speak
Yeah.
for the whole entity, but I think that's definitely something we could, I mean, we have done similar types of proposals of saying, like, we recommend this, and that's part of what we do, is
Right.
recommending things to the city commission. So I would think that sounds nice
Yeah.
for this body to do
How do
in
you
general.
see that working? I mean, if it's city property, we designate it as a park or something, you know what I mean? Or if it's if it's privately owned property, somebody can place a conservation easement on an area
Right.
for that purpose. Well, how do you see that being implemented? If I own 20 acres somewhere, how do you see that happening?
From what I understand, and I'm incredibly new to all this.
Okay.
And just plowing ahead,
Yeah.
it would be up to the landowner to request, a change request. So in some ways, it's symbolic. If the landowner is able to do it, make that change, then it's the landowner. From what I understand, they could request, get an easement on it, stopping them from doing. But again, I'm the studies as well, so.
I mean, it kind of falls into NFP, if the area is already green enough, meaning, and that would fall under woodland areas, could have incorporated into NFP.
So I think
But
the reason this came up, was because there was in all of the zoning updates, there was a space in Oakwood, oh my gosh,
With Memorial Beach.
yeah, there was a place that, was non-conforming in zoning, so they were proposing to zone it, do you remember which way? Residential, instead of having it as some kind of separate, it is a park designation for green space, so that it's known as a green space. So instead to change the unconforming, they're saying like, hey, this could be future residential, and that wasn't, the current intention of the land, so why isn't there something that can also be green space?
Okay.
And,
Yeah, and as someone that's been observing this, closely enough for the last year and then a little bit before that, but I really started getting it. I was just surprised that there is no such parcel owners. And if you look at our map, there's sections like that can work in conjunction, probably. I mean, it's apples and oranges within it. But that kind of brings up the second point I was about the future zoning conversation. That they're gonna start phases of pairing of a green space zone.
Before you go to the next question, I would appreciate if you have some thoughts about this that you think encapsulate it really well. If you could send those to us, we could use that to formulate a recommendation for the city.
Okay.
That this is, we support this, but if you gave us what exactly you're.
to actually be able to discuss a specific written thing,
Sure.
is usually how we.
So the petition I created, which is very summarizes it, does have, a counties, that have zoning ordinance talking about. So in some cases, it's, if it's an a la carte, just like go through those and what looks best for our, honest with our needs, and kind of say, okay, this county is doing what we should be. College feed and all that stuff. So would it be helpful to provide those as like my favorites of those, but it's not, I'm not in some ways it would be nice to have I can try to scrounge up skills that could contribute to, here are the best recommendations.
My thought is that most of the committee is probably, at least in theory, in support of this.
Yeah.
And if you were to suggest what you would like that to look like, we could then, discuss amongst ourselves, beyond theory, where could we actually agree on the recommendation?
Right. You guys can't create your own kind of.
We
draft
could.
of
We
that,
could,
yeah.
but, yeah,
This would just save
I don't
us
mind.
time.
yeah.
I don't mind continuing to do the work, but, so I'll do that, thanks for that. Second part of it, which is a lot newer, related to land action, is land acquisition, and sell program.
No.
I just read just a brief history of that?
Yeah.
Okay. The open space and parkland preservation millage, aka Greenbelt, started with Grand Vision overwhelmingly. Year, levy was 60%. Millage funds both new parkland acquisitions with the city limits as well as land preservation. Greenbelt district. So that means 1/3 of the revenue. 2/3 revenue for the land preservation outside the city, but within. And there's a lot of, there's hired, usually it's, we end up buying development. Lot cheaper than buying the whole property. Development rights are then tax that, and that's a forever binding, you can't. Great resource for farmers, help itself in the city, or cities that want and together to buy these properties. Rich guy that can buy it, so it's a great way to, in my mind, protect every neighborhood that should have a percentage of green space. Is protecting land on rivers. Actually, the original 2003 ballot language clearly stated protection of the city's source water was a primary basin parkland. And its last part of the Greenbelt program has helped establish 10 new public nature. There's a mountain of reasons, in my mind, to pursue. You guys would be interested in that, and has there ever been conversation about land acquisition?
I can remember, I've been here longer than anyone's here right now, but yeah, so, I mean, it's very possible in the longer history of it, that that's
It seems to
been brought up.
target most of your goals.
Yeah.
It's like 10,000.
Yeah, so how does everyone feel about putting this on the agenda to discuss further next month?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yep.
Sounds
Thank you for
good.
bringing it forward, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
And we are at 5:55, so was there any other final comments from anyone? Okay, then we can adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Yeah.